Welcome to this episode of the Smart Leaders Sell podcast. My name is Jessica Lorimer, sales coach and leadership expert, and I'm joined today by the lovely Emma Heptonstall, founder, or actually author rather, of Ladies Who, or How to Be a Lady Who Leaves.
Hi Jess, thanks for having me.
I'm very excited that you're here. I'm also a little bit frustrated at myself, I'll be honest, everyone, that I just A, forgot the name to my podcast, B, remembered Emma's name, and C, totally screwed up on what she actually does. So there you go. You know, if I was a person for retakes, we'd redo it. But there is no time for that today because I am currently recovering from flu and Emma has lots of questions that she wants to ask today about some pretty exciting stuff. So let's just talk about you for a minute before we dive into the question you've got, which I'm actually really excited about. It's one of the interesting ones that's been brought to the podcast this year. You have essentially set up a business and made a successful business that is all about something we don't really talk about that often, which is divorce, right?
Yes, that's right. So I am the divorce alchemist and I help ladies who leave their husbands only if they want to. It's not compulsory, but for women who are thinking about leaving, making that decision, first steps that they need to take. I set up that business because as a former lawyer and family mediator, I noticed that there's still quite a lot of a stigma around leaving, particularly if you're a mum, and uncertainty about what to do, what steps to take, and when to take them. So I started the Divorce Alchemist 3.5 years ago, and here I am.
And it's been an exciting journey because over that 3.5 years, you've done an awful lot. You've written a book, How to Be a Lady Who Leaves, which I have on my bookshelf. Sam was devastated when I brought it home. He was like, what do you mean? Why are you reading this book? I'm like, well, be good and you'll never find out. And I was fortunate enough to come to the book launch last year. You've run successful group coaching programs. You've worked one-to-one. You are attending and speaking at a high-profile event this week. You know, you've really made a successful business that is in one of those areas that people find uncomfortable and that it is difficult to talk about. And a lot of women, you know, really feel judged when they're talking about leaving or divorce or anything that isn't, I'm going to say, social media perfect. You know, That's a huge deal.
Absolutely. And I find that with my business, it always really is a slow burn because ladies will reach out to me and we might have an initial conversation and then I might not hear from them for 6 months. And then they'll say, oh, well, I'm ready now. Because of that stigma and that fear of judgment and the worry about the cost and the impact emotionally and all of those kind of things. So a lot of what I do in my marketing is talking in a very soft way, but also, and what I found working with you really helpful, is about getting them to take action without feeling like I'm saying that if they don't, that they're bad or that they're wrong, and encouraging them to invest in themselves when part of the reason that they're staying in their relationships is often because they don't feel that they can afford to leave or use money that might otherwise be for their children to fund their divorce.
And it's a really scary situation to be in. I mean, I obviously have not been married because Sam is yet to put a ring on it. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. But it's that kind of thing where I've got friends and family members who've been through divorce and who've all said it's been a really harrowing process. And so I remember when we first started working together, and it was about, you know, how do we sell to people who are in this vulnerable situation, who really don't feel like they're being emotionally supported at all. And that's one of the things that I've watched you, certainly over the last 2 years, do incredibly well. You know, you really have found avenues to support these women, whatever stage they're at, you know, whether it is a case of reading your book and thinking, right, okay, I'm going to finally make the decision whether I leave or not, or whether it's working with you, you know, in that group capacity or one-to-one and working out the nuts and bolts of their divorce, how it's going to work, how it's going to impact the children, how it's going to work financially, all that kind of thing. You basically do everything that solicitors are getting paid to do, but don't, you know, be nice, warm, fuzzy, actually help people.
Yes, one of my old colleagues used to call me the touchy-feely one.
Because it's only appropriate in certain situations.
Exactly. But that really does make people feel good. And, you know, working with you through Cash Creation recently, I noticed that the highest converting posts that I'd write or emails or blogs were the ones that focused on the emotion when actually they'll come for a practical financial question, but actually if I address the emotion first, it makes that sales process a lot easier because they feel that I understand them, that I know them, like I'm talking about them particularly.
Exactly.
So that was really, really helpful. But my question for you today, Jess,
I'm very excited about this.
Working with you, and it's all about launch sequence and the importance of that and having that ready ahead of time so you know exactly how that looks, and possibly doing an early bird offer, which I did with my most recent group program, is what to do when the early bird has finished. Because I remember messaging you going, oh, Jess, my early bird's finished. No one's going to buy now. That didn't happen. They did buy after. And it's still kind of, my brain just goes, what? Why would you do that? Because if I want something personally, I buy the early bird. And if I'm not going to buy the early bird, I'm probably not going to buy.
It's a really interesting one. So I think the thing that I always remind myself of during launches is that not everybody buys like me, because I'm like you. If something's on early bird, it's quite likely that I've watched whatever launch sequence is going on. I liked it enough to sign up. I want to actively purchase whatever that person's selling. And if I can get the best deal possible, why would I not buy? That's why people ultimately are so attracted to things like Black Friday, Cyber Monday, post-Christmas sales, all that stuff. However, some people, for them, the process of buying is not about putting the money down. It's about thinking, does this person understand me? Do they know my problem? Can they articulate my problem better than I can? Do I really think that they have the solution? And most importantly, do I believe in myself enough to do what they say to do in the product, program, or service to get myself the results? And so those people typically take a lot longer to go through that sales process, because for every good reason you give them to buy something, there's always something else that's coming up in their brain that's stopping them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does. That's really useful.
So they're all going from there, oh my goodness, well, how can I possibly spend this much money on myself? And then they'll justify that, and then they'll find something else. It'll be like, well, what if I don't get that result? Or what if, my husband decides not to be a complete toe rag, or my wife decides not to be a complete toe rag? What then? Will I have got my money's worth? Will the investment be worth it? Could I do this on my own? Is this something my solicitor can help with? All these kinds of questions will be coming up. And so actually the early bird process, it can be a lot easier in terms of the sale, because effectively we're talking to our warmest people. And you'll know this from cash creation. When you are selling to your warmest people, your warmest audience, you're going to get the best results because they're super warm. They want to buy, they want to support you, they want what you have. As your audience gets colder, so post early bird, that's when it starts to get slightly harder, because those people may still be, I like Emma, I know her, I trust her, but they might not necessarily have been on a buying spectrum. They might have only just got to know you, in which case they're still warming up and thinking, oh God, here's this limited time offer. Do I buy it? Do I not? They might be somebody who has been part of a community for a long time. People who train baby birds have this problem, in that they'll train a raving tribe of people who are like, oh my God, that person's amazing, to not buy from them. And so actually those people will never pick up the early bird because they're not used to being sold to yet. And they're still in that process of being retrained. So there are lots of reasons why people don't pick that early bird price. The key things to remember are always, people will always buy at full price. I mean, how many things have you bought full price over the last year?
Probably the majority of stuff that I buy is full price, because when they are purchases that I haven't really thought about. So for example, I bought some AirPods the other day because I wanted them. I don't need them. I wanted them. So I did use the O2 voucher, and it was only £20 off. But that encouraged me to buy them. If I knew how great they were before the £20 discount, I probably would have paid full price for them. But I just needed that little bit of a justification to buy. But if I really want something and I can't wait, I'll just buy.
But you said it right there, justification. And that's what people who buy after the early bird are looking for. They're looking for reassurance. They're looking for someone to justify, yes, this is the right decision for you. You should do it because X, Y, Z. They're looking for somebody to make it easy for them. And so that's why when you're running the cart, I mean, we were looking at this during the last cash creation launch in July. 60% of buyers came from my email list, which was huge. You know, that's a massive, massive percentage, especially when everyone's still pushing social media as being the main sales tool.
Yeah.
However, the majority of people bought, the warmest ones obviously bought early bird. So we had, great, yay, early bird's done. We had, you know, our first 12 people through early bird.
Yeah.
The rest bought full price.
Wow.
So that's a huge amount given the size of the current round. They bought full price, and some people, you know, said, great, because when it went to full price, we did a special 24-hour payment option where we added an extra pay plan on there so they could do it over 3 installments instead of 2.
Yeah.
That made life easier for some people. Some people actually just wanted to see the email sequence. We had one person email in and say, I bought right at the last minute because I wanted to keep getting all of the other sales emails.
Great strategy.
And that's always a plus. But we had a lot of people who said, you know, the reasons that they bought were because the emails that went out after the early bird all talked about specific pain points, specific problems, and how to overcome them. And so actually the launch still demonstrated value. Even if you didn't buy it, you could read through the emails and go, okay, here's what I can analyze from a sales perspective if I want to learn about sales. And also here's what I can look at to help make my decision. And that's all you're doing. You know, there is no reason for people not to buy at full price. If they want something, they'll buy it. The money isn't the deciding factor for the majority of people. It's that real sense of, can this person help me? Are they providing the right solution? Do I trust them to get me the result? Or do I trust myself? And that's what you want to be overcoming in that launch period, is when it goes to full price, okay, great, one of the reasons of urgency is gone, but actually now is the time to look at your audience and start focusing more on the consequences. What happens if you don't buy? What happens in 6 months' time when you look back and go, oh, actually, I wish life was a bit different, and perhaps if I'd made different choices, it would look different.
Okay, that's a really interesting point, because, you know, I was just so focused on well, if they won't pay this price, they won't pay that price. And 2 of them did. So I knew that I was wrong, but I didn't really think about why. And in fact, one of them bought the most expensive part of the package that they could have done. And as ever, she's the one that's using it most, which makes my heart sing, because, yeah, she's getting the value out of it, because, you know, she's paid a lot of money for it and she wants to make sure that she gets her money's worth. And I'm super happy about that, because she'll get the result as well.
Yeah.
So what's the difference then in terms of email sequence in the early bird to the post? I hear what you say about these post emails that are more specific on pain points.
So that's a good question. So before your early bird closes, the majority of people will send out emails that are focused towards the main point of urgency, or the main reason of urgency for buying, as being the price is going up. So that's when you're going to see, and usually your early bird is a maximum of 72 hours. So for 3 days, you're going to see emails that go, the price goes up in, and countdown timer, because that's the main focus. And we want people to buy during that time because it's best deal for them and it's confidence boost for us as salespeople. After that point is where most people fall down, because they now don't have another reason of urgency. Perhaps the price isn't going up again. So then what do you do? And that's where people get caught into this, like, I'm going to do an expiring bonus, or I'm going to give something out for free, or, you know, let me give you tons and tons of stuff to hope that you pay more. The reality is that at that point, the person doesn't need to know anything else about the features. They don't need to know anything else about the features, because they've just read all of that in your pre-early bird. Because at the early bird, because your really main reason of urgency is prices going up, you already talk about all the features. This is what you're going to get. This is what's going to happen. This is when it's going to take place, etc., because we want people to buy that.
Yeah.
Afterwards, that's when it's really focused on benefits. What are the true benefits of paying full price for this particular program? You know, what really will happen? What is the transformation? What are the consequences of not investing now? What does life look like in 6 to 12 months? The other things that you look at typically are around FAQs. You know, what questions do people often have? Usually questions are about payment plans or refunds, or, how will it work for me? Is it right for me, etc.? Simple emails on just saying something like, look, hit reply. If you've got questions, I'm here for the next 2 hours. Can answer whatever you want and help you make your decision. Emails on case studies.
Mm-hmm.
How have people been through it before? How did they get on? What did they achieve? All of those kinds of emails are the ones you want to be sending at that full price point, because that's when people their decision is much more around, can I do this? And so explaining the benefits, explaining the consequences, demonstrating that other people have made it through successfully, giving them FAQs, they all buy into that word that we talked about earlier, justification. How can I justify that this is right for me and that I need to make this decision? Does that make more sense?
It does. Yeah, that's really, really helpful, because I kind of run out of steam and I'm like, oh, what should I do? What do I do now? I don't know what to do now. And I think in my head, I was like, oh, maybe you priced it too high. And of course the mind monkeys start going, oh, you priced it too high. It's too high and people won't buy. And I did push through that, but I found it really, really uncomfortable. And I think I did because I didn't have a clear vision of that strategy. Mm-hmm. So I know that next time I launch it, that I can have my email sequence and actually focus more energy on the full priced emails.
Yes, 100%.
And let the early bird take care of itself.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, just because you care about the initial price doesn't mean they do. Like, you might triple the price next time or double it or quadruple it. It won't matter, because the consequences of them not doing it are still the same. And that's why when we price based on transformation, we're pricing based on, how is this going to impact that person's life, or the key quadrants of their life? How's it going to affect their wealth? How's it going to affect their health? How's it going to affect their life? And how's it going to affect their relationships? And that's what people care about, So when we're actually talking to those things, when you're sending out an email that focuses on the benefits that working with you or working on this program will have for their wealth, have a divorce that doesn't cost you the earth and rip off both parties, versus, hey, it's £600 more, but it's still really good. You start to see why people want to buy. When you're sending out an email that says, okay, cool, instead of having a divorce where you and your ex-spouse can't look at each other when you're handing the kids over, actually have a divorce where it's amicable, where you can co-parent successfully, where you don't, make your children feel like there's something awkward and horrific happening. And instead it's one of those, unfortunately, normal parts of life for them. And that's how their family is going to move forward. Versus, hey, it's £600 more, but great, you're not going to necessarily hate your partner. Do you see the difference? It's all about, what are we talking to in these people that they really need to know? What are their fears?
And from that, how important do you think price is then when you're pricing a group coaching program or even a one-to-one?
I don't think it's important. I don't think it's important at all. For me, price is relative, because you're always going to get somebody who says that's too expensive. You're always going to get somebody who says that's too cheap. It doesn't matter what your price is. It's about how that person perceives the transformation or the outcome at that particular point in time. And so for me, I've always priced based on transformation right from when I was in corporate, because when I was in corporate with the job I was doing, it meant somebody else didn't have to. If I do this, somebody else who is not as qualified, who doesn't have the same network, who doesn't have the same ability to, read psychometric testing or interview correctly, or all those kinds of things, somebody else is going to be responsible for recruiting your next senior executive. Do you really want that? And the answer is no, because who wants to, put their senior executive in the hands of somebody who's not qualified to interview them or sell them the job or headhunt correctly or network and have an immediate pool of people that they can access? Nobody wants to do that. And it's the same in any business now. You've got to think about, what's the transformation that I'm bringing? If I deliver this service, how does it impact your life? How does it impact your wealth? How does it impact your health? How does it impact your relationships? And for you, it's about a massive reduction in stress, because, that whole emotional support piece we were talking about earlier, it's having somebody there to talk to that's qualified, that isn't just your friend down the road who's going to be like, yeah, your spouse is an absolute nightmare and you should definitely be getting rid of them and screwing them for everything. You know, it's about having that key unbiased voice of reason. It's about looking at the health perspectives. If you're less stressed, what happens? Actually, can you be a happier person? Can you reduce some of the other things that are going on? You know, how does it impact your relationships? Well, nobody said that you had to have a bad relationship with an ex. There are plenty of people who have ex-boyfriends that they talk to. I mean, me and Sam are very good friends with one of my exes and his new girlfriend. And whilst it would be weird, we'll get on really well because the kind of commonality is we knew it would never work. So it's fine. You can still be adult. You can still be mature about it.
Yeah.
You know, there are lots and lots of those kinds of reasons that you want to bring in that are actually way more important to people than how much it actually costs.
Yeah. Well, that really makes sense. And I think this may be true for other people, is that in my Facebook group, the wealthier ones tend to be the lurkers who will reach out last minute. I think, oh, where did you come from? Whereas the ones that possibly genuinely don't have lots of funds will be the ones asking questions a lot of the time. And it's easy to get sucked into thinking that nobody else is watching and listening when perhaps they are.
That's a huge piece. And I think social media has a lot to answer for there. It's one of the reasons that I always say to people, grow an email list, because I get tons of people who buy from my email list that have never responded to an email. They've never reached out and been like, hey Jess, how's your day going? As much as I'd love that. But if you go back and you look at the tracking on ActiveCampaign, because I'm a stalker, you can see that person's opened every email for the last 3 months. You know, they've genuinely been interested. They've clicked over. They've listened to the podcast. You know, they've done other things. And actually that makes a big difference. Whereas on social media, you're kind of in Zuckerberg's hands. We don't know if they've even seen it. We can't always play the algorithms correctly. Even if you're paying to play with advertising, you're not always seeing the people who are necessarily going to end up buying.
Yeah.
And I think that everybody worries about, oh, my group is full of people who, or my group is full of freeple is a term that I've heard. My group is full of freeple. They only want things for free. And the reality is there are other people there watching and listening, but if they're being trained in the same way as the people who really want everything for free, they are going to end up like that. So I think it's a case of being really careful about what you put out, setting boundaries around what information you want to give for free and what you want to do for free, but also setting that expectation for people. Look, there is a limit on what I can do free because I can't make everything bespoke for everybody. It wouldn't be fair on my paying clients.
Yeah. That's been a salutary lesson to me over the last 12 to 18 months. And I think I've moved away from that now, but I can feel myself every now and then getting sucked back into it. Because somebody will ask, you know, it tends to be Sunday mornings in my world. My group is very active about 7 a.m. on a Sunday morning. And if I happen to see something, I'll just go and answer it. And then before I know it, then 5 other people have asked a question, and it can be such a time suck.
Yeah.
How do you hold those people, actually? Because I'm just like post-launch now, and though, you know, you slapped my wrist last week going, don't launch anything else, Emma. Don't. I don't like it. Right, what's next then? What else can I sign up? How do you kind of have that conversation where you say, casually, I mean, I have been casually saying, oh, have you thought about my membership? You know, Divorce Ready's closed. How about my membership?
So I always say to people, you know, there are a couple of ways of going around it. So one, you could always have a downsell from a launch. So you could have a downsell of something either super cheap, like your book, that you don't really have to do that much with because it's passive and they can go through and read it.
Yeah.
You can start answering questions in your group with, hey, I cover that in my book. Would you like the link? That works quite well because then you're training them subtly and they're not feeling too pressurized by it. Or you can do, you know, what I did. And I basically went in and I said, look, you know, ultimately, I love giving for free. It's one of the things, my community is really important to me. I love being able to help out where I can, but I can't do it all the time because it would cause distress to my paying clients. And that's not something I can afford to do. So here's my boundary. Every single quarter, I'm going to run a free challenge. You can participate. There is no obligation to buy anything from me at all. You can listen to my free podcast. You can look at the blog. You can come and participate in the challenge. You can be in the group, all for free, have interesting discussions, pick up the strategies, learn, implement, do your thing. But when I think that you genuinely need something else to get you to the next level, whether it's me or whether it's someone else or whether it's a different product entirely, I'm going to tell you. And that's the boundary. So when I think that your question is too general and the only way I could help solve it is for you to hop on the phone with me, I'm going to tell you. When I think that there's an episode you should go listen to that will cover your question, I'm going to tell you that too. So I'm not just going to give you the free stuff. I'm going to tell you when you need to pay. If you choose not to, that's on you too, right? That's your decision. But in the spirit of transparency, it would be irresponsible of me not to tell you when there are times that you should step up, because otherwise, if you don't, it could be a risk of you stepping out entirely. And that's why I'm telling you.
Okay, yeah, that's really helpful, because there's definitely people in my group who do need my paid help. I'm trying to get their divorce almost by stealth, one question at a time. And is it possible?
I love it.
That way? Yeah, but it's going to take you probably 3 years.
And that's the thing. Sometimes you've just got to level with people and be like, look, you can do it your way. And I say to people all the time, like, look, I've produced enough free content that honestly, if you listen to all of it and you just did it, you could build a business on your own terms and do whatever you liked. However, the difference is you wouldn't have anyone to troubleshoot when things inevitably go awry. You wouldn't have the benefit of 10 years of experience behind you having your back, and you would do it so much slower that by the time you actually achieved it, you'd be watching the people who are doing it now, who are investing now, already be on their way to success, already be flying and doing their thing.
Yeah.
So it's up to you. You get to wait, or you can do it quicker and easier. Choice is yours.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Does that help? Does that answer everything you needed?
It really, really does, because whilst kind of the post-launch is still sort of fresh in my mind, I'm going to make some really good notes about what worked, what didn't work, take some of those social media posts, take those emails that I send, tweak them, and have a clearer post early bird strategy. Because as you say, if early bird's only lasting 72 hours, but I'm doing the launch for a week, then actually there's more time after. Yeah. So I need to spend more time. I think possibly the fantasy is everybody's going to buy early bird, then I can sit back and put my feet up and watch some TV. That didn't happen.
If that ever happens, let me know, because I'm like, right, Emma, teach me everything you know. I think we've been trained in the online space to think that price is the ultimate decision maker. And I just don't think it's true. There are so many other things that impact people. You said that your audience, the biggest pull for them was emotional. It was, knowing this is how you feel. I understand how you feel. Here's how we can help you feel better.
Yeah.
And I think that just shows price wasn't the key indicator, and it never is. I think we as business owners like to think that it is, because it's the thing we feel most able to control. And we like to blame price, right? If we didn't sell enough during the launch, oh, well, it's because the price is too high. Or if we didn't get the right people, oh, well, the price is too low. I attracted the wrong people. And the reality is that we have so much more control than we think. It's just that we don't use it. We don't like to see it, because actually it's more difficult. It's way more difficult to be like, right, okay, how can I go and conduct a case study that is genuinely empowering for people, rather than them thinking, oh God, she's just going to push me into getting a divorce when I might not want to yet, right? Yeah. Those things are infinitely more difficult, but they convert so much better.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. Bring on the next launch.
There we go. I'm like, November, December, launch time. You're happy you're here. So where can people find you? If we have anyone here who is a lady who wants to leave, or potentially wants to leave, or is thinking about leaving, where can they find you?
Well, probably the best place to get all of my links is to go to my website at www.emmaheptonstall.com, or search for The Divorce Alchemist if you can't spell my surname. You will find my website there, and there's links to all my social media on there. And if you want to go and buy a copy of my book, you can buy it from www.howtobealadywholeaves.co.uk. And it's also available on Amazon if that's your bag.
Awesome. And the front cover is very, very cool. I cannot
so
remember the
pretty.
name of the lady who designed it, but it's awesome.
Lucy Monkman, who is amazing. And
There you go.
yes, I do. I still, even 18 months on, I still love my book cover.
I really like it. I always look at it on my shelf and I'm like, it's just really nice. So there you go. If you are a lady who potentially wants to leave, make sure you go and check Emma out. And if you have any questions that you want to bring on the podcast, we are now accepting guests for 2019. So if you're somebody who wants to come on, have your question answered and be on the podcast in 2019, who doesn't, then make sure you hit us up at jessica@jessicalorama.com and we will respond to your emails and get you a spot. I'll see you on Monday's episode. Have an awesome weekend.